In the case of Iran, Holbrooke is actually the moderate, believe it or not. But it's still these people are all these Council on Foreign Relations, this AIPAC crowd, America-Israel Public Affairs Committee, the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, all these various think tanks that basically are conducting their U.S. foreign policy is being conducted basically as a franchise to special interest groups, and I think that's one of the things that Obama is going to have to face here with him getting tough recently on Israeli settlements and Israel's policy against Iran. He told him he doesn't want them to attack Iran, and he wants them to halt the settlements, but Netanyahu is saying flat out no, and it's resulting in probably the worst U.S.-Israeli relations since the Suez invasion of 1956, when basically Eisenhower broke completely with the Israelis over their invasion of Egypt.
You think that's a real break because Obama was financed in large part by the Israeli lobby?
You know, and I look at Rahm Emanuel as his chief of staff and others, and I have to wonder how far can he go with having these. I mean, Emanuel during Desert Storm was serving in the Israeli army. I mean, when all of our guys, men and women, were fighting, over in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and in Iraq, here we have Emanuel serving in another country's armed forces. So, how much leeway does Obama have? I wish I had my ear inside the West Wing, but I do know that Emanuel is probably one of the strongest chiefs of staff in recent memory, and in one case, he was cracking his knuckles at this cabinet meeting, and Obama said, "Rahm, I find that annoying. I wish it'd stop." He gets up and cracks his knuckles right in Obama's ear, and everybody laughs, and I think that was Emanuel's way to tell the visiting members of Congress and members of the cabinet, hey, I'm in charge here. And
Wayne, I have to say that everything with Obama is betrayal. He'll say he's going to do the right thing, and then he always goes back on it later or puts it into some debate process, while continuing with the older bad policy. So I think there's going to be a staged terror attack or something's going to happen so Obama can say, well, see, I tried to fix things, but now I've got to go in there. There's no way that the IDF Mossad agent, Emanuel, and all that money he got from Israel, there's no way they're not going to continue. But side issue, what are you hearing in Washington? Because I know you're right inside those intelligence meetings, covering them and for the press. The word is that Israel may go it alone and attack Iran. Would they do that without U.S. backing, or where do you see it?
Well, I don't think they logistically could. They'd have to fly over first Jordanian airspace, but then they'd have to go over Iraqi airspace, and we control Iraqi airspace, so it would have to be done with our connivance. Otherwise, they'd have to fly over Saudi airspace. Now, they could potentially get that permission because one of the little-known things about the Middle East is that Saudi Arabia
hate the Iranians, yeah.
Yeah, they're really on the same page when it comes to the Iranians, and there has been a lot of low-level intelligence cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Israel on Iran, and also with the situation with Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's very little known, but it has been going on for a number of years. So. Would they? Certainly, they may like to. The only way they could actually avoid the airspace and hit Iran would be to use their submarines, Israeli submarines, and they have at least one, if not two, in the Persian Gulf at any given time with nuclear-tipped cruise missiles that could
That's
hit
right. Those German
Iranian
Dolphins.
targets.
Those German Dolphins.
That's right. But they can only pack a certain amount of punch with those because they're constrained to submarine platforms. So, would they basically reap more than they would sow in a situation like that? Well, Iran could be expected to really retaliate in force. But we have Iranian presidential elections coming up this week, and if the moderate wins, that's going to take a lot of the wind out of the sails of Netanyahu to be talking about a strike on Iran, because everybody will be looking at further rapprochement. And if Mousavi wins that election, I think we'll have an Iranian embassy reopening in Washington in probably 6 months.
Okay, I want to go to some calls here as promised, but Wayne, I want to throw out two other points to you. I know you've got some intel on Air France Was there any chicanery there? A lot of people have been saying that. There have been bomb threats in the days before. I want to get your take on that from your sources. But first, we remember that the CIA section chief over Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we interviewed him, wrote Jawbreaker and admitted what we already knew, that the Taliban would grab for $20,000, $25,000 bounties 14-year-old kids that couldn't find the U.S. on a map, sell them as al-Qaeda fighters, and then they would take them to Guantanamo Bay, and the government didn't care. They wanted just bodies to say, look, there's the terror threat, you know, to add validity to the war on terror. Now it's admitted that in Pakistan and Iraq, they pay people $150 per RFID chip, or it's more than RFID, little radio beacons, and that the people admit, this was in the Times of London and London Telegraph and in Wired magazine, that they then just go throw them in innocent people's houses. And that's some of why we see weddings and people being wiped out, because people will just leave these in public places and get their $150. And the Defense Department doesn't care because they just want to say, oh, look, we identified all these terror targets to keep the mission going. It's kind of like fake body counts. Instead of having fake body counts, we'll just go ahead and blow up real weddings. And they're now using dead people at weddings as a body count and have reintroduced the body count. Your comments on that?
Well, it harkens back to what happened in Vietnam with Operation Phoenix, inflated, number of Viet Cong and VA dead. They're playing with numbers. I really think we need to get out of Iraq. We need to get out of Afghanistan, and stop this bloodletting on both sides. General Petraeus, who I think is the biggest fraud ever served recently in the Pentagon, wearing a uniform, is basically still pushing this surge, and now he wants the surge in Afghanistan, and the surge has had dramatic consequences. We've had all these. The media doesn't even cover Baghdad anymore, or Iraq more generally.
That's right. The deaths have gone back up now.
Exactly, and there, 3 servicemen here killed in a roadside bomb, 4 here, and nobody's even covering it. You don't even get covered
because
on evening
Obama's
news.
In now. Now it's a new chapter. Move on, and then it's almost like Iraq doesn't exist.
Supports the war. That's the other thing. This liberal progressive organization now is supporting Afghanistan and Iraq, the surge, and they've just shown themselves to be total phonies. They're not progressive. They were just in it for themselves. Another George Soros-backed organization, and Soros is the chief and most wealthy troublemaker in the world today.
What about Soros? He's had all his organs attacking me lately. It's kind of scary. All his publications.
Join the club. Me too. He's after me every day, and it comes from different. He has all these fun organizations, so I'm getting it from multiple sides.
What does that mean to have Soros attacking us?
Well, I think it's good. I mean, it shows that we're not buying into his Hegelian view of the world, where he tries to create these opposition forces, and then he's going to capitalize on the chaos he creates. He puts these puppets in. He has these themed revolutions in Georgia, Ukraine. He calls them orange revolutions, tulip revolutions, and Lebanon.
But I mean, that's my point. Is why is he bragging at press conferences that he's behind the crisis, which he really isn't, but he's capitalizing and saying, I'm having a great crisis, time of my life, culmination of my life. And then he's funding these eugenics movies saying carbon footprints are big. We got to have global taxes paid to him. I mean,